What up, Burgundy Brigade? Welcome back to another episode of the Burgundy Boss Podcast. It is I, the Burgundy Boss, here for another episode. We're not really, it's not really an episode. It's just a little fun festival where we're going to sit, we're going to talk football in January. Non-playoff football in January is what we're talking. And we're talking coach firings because we've got some more. Some more guys have get the can. They've gotten kicked. I said, out the door, you goes. And before I get too deep into this, I want to tell everybody thank you for watching the video. Thank you to all the subscribers on the channel. If you're not subscribed, go to the YouTube at Burgundy Boss Podcast on YouTube and subscribe. If you are, watch the video, like the video, comment on the video, tell me your favorite team. Tell me what more I can do for you as a fan of the Burgundy Boss Podcast. And if you're not following me on Twitter, shame on you. You should be following me on Twitter. So run over to Twitter, click the follow. I follow back every single time. And with that being said, let's hop right into this. So, we went over, all the firings. We got Minnesota, Chicago, Miami, Denver, Jacksonville, Vegas, right? All those teams, those were done. We already had those, right? We knew about those. But what we didn't know about, we thought we knew, they just decided to give us a little head shake and not tell us immediately. They halted the process a little bit. And the first one was the New York Giants. The New York Football Giants had decided that they were going to wait a day to fire their man, and that is Joe Judge. They decided to give Joe Judge the can because, I talked about it on the episode that I did on Monday, and it was talked about on all types of social media platforms, radio shows, TV, the talking heads, they talked about it. And it was about, how does Joe Judge still have a job? Brian Flores just got canned for, beating Bill Belichick 4 times in 3 years. Like, how does that happen? And Joe Judge still has a job, and, it was a big mystery. And, John Mara said, hold my beer because I got something coming for y'all. And he essentially came out and said in his press conference that this is the most embarrassed he's felt for his team in the history of being a co-owner of his team. And that, he needs to take a step back and look at it and realize that they've made some bad decisions, and he admitted that, some of the choices they've made in the past haven't been the best. And because they're like a tried and true franchise. They're one of these franchises that doesn't go through a lot of coaches typically until these last 4 or 5 years when they've went through McAdoo and Shermer and Judge and all these other guys that they've gone through. So with that being said, Joe Judge, you are gone. You are a clown, as the thumbnail says. You're a clown. Come after my franchise. It may not have a name yet, but you know what? It is less of a mockery in the NFL than your franchise is currently. Going for a QB sneak inside your own 5, 2 plays in a row, that is a mockery of the NFL. Claiming that you're doing it for field position and because you don't want to risk a punt being blocked, that's BS. That's all I have to say about Joe Judge and that. The other man that really didn't get a fair shake, he resides in Houston, David Culley. He really got the short end of the stick there. There's never really been, or at least we thought as fans, the term a bridge coach. Well, we got a bridge coach this year. David Culley was a bridge coach. He was to get him through the season, and he was like an interim coach that was never with the team. They hired him to be an interim coach, is essentially what they did. Whatever, Houston's a dumpster fire, and I seen a post. It was like the top four worst owners in the NFL, and guess what? Uh, Admittedly, Daniel Snyder was on that list. Not going to get any pushback from Washington fans or myself or, probably any other Washington content maker. Daniel Snyder, bad owner. You know who else was on that list? The man that just fired Brian Flores down in Miami, Stephen Ross, was on that list. You know who else was on that list? No, not John Mayer. I know you thought I was going there. John Mayer is not on that list yet, and neither are the Tishes. They're good owners. They really are good owners. They try to do right by everything they do. They just want to win, kind of like everybody else. Cal McNair. Cal McNair is on that list, though. He's another one of these bad owners the NFL has right now. And it's a mess. It really is a mess. But, now that I've made that point, I want to talk about these coaches that just got fired, kind of where they are, who they are, where they've been, and potentially where they could be going. Let's start first with David Culley. David Culley, almost his entire career, has been a wide receivers coach. He started in 94 with the Buccaneers as a wide receivers coach. Then in 96, he moved on to Pittsburgh and was a wide receivers coach. In 99, he went to Philly, was a wide receivers coach under Andy Reid, and stayed there for quite some time until he went with Andy Reid in 2013 to Kansas City, and guess what? He was a wide receivers coach. In 2017, he went to Buffalo in the only stint that wasn't him as a wide receivers coach, and that was as a quarterback coach, ironically. And then 2019, he goes to Baltimore. He goes back to his old role. He goes back to being a wide receivers coach. And then it's kind of the end of the coaching cycle, if you guys remember. And Houston is kind of the lone dog without a coach, and most of the coach candidates had been sucked up, and there really wasn't anybody who was like, who are they going to hire as a coach? Like, there's nobody left. They were kind of late in the process in hiring their GM, and so their GM finally got in there, and that was like one of the first things he did. He hired David Culley, but David Culley, I mean, he was just throwing darts at the wall, hoping that he could get something. And he did. He got David Culley, who was in Baltimore at the time as the wide receivers coach, and he was doing a darn good job. I mean, but it's his first head coaching job, and so I don't know really what you expected. I mean, it was like the worst of worst situations that you could think of. Maybe they thought that he could coerce Deshaun Watson into playing for them this year or whatever, but they were wrong. And once they figured that out, I'm sure they put it in their plans that they were going to not keep him longer than they had to. And so they decided to get rid of him. And I definitely thought they were going to get rid of him on Black Monday, but they didn't. Actually, they waited until the day after Black Monday and then did it. So I don't really understand the thought process behind that, but if anybody does, hey, let me know. Because I have no idea. Like, why not just get rid of him? I mean, Black Monday, that's when the majority of these coaches got fired. If you're going to do it, you might as well get a jump on the head coach search. He probably didn't do a bad job for you, but which is why you keep him till the end of the season. But then once the season's over, then get the ball rolling. That's really it for David Culley. We move over to the other coach that got fired that we already talked about, Joe Judge. Joe Judge has actually a lot less coaching experience. He did not become a coach until 2009 when he was a special teams assistant at Alabama. Yes, that's assistant. He was not even the special teams coach. That's how he got in. He was a special teams assistant at Alabama. And then in 2012, he moves to the NFL. He becomes a special teams assistant for New England. And apparently he did good in that role because in 2015, they made him the special teams coordinator. And he continued to excel in that role, obviously, because he stayed in that position. And then in 2019, he was given the title of also being the wide receivers coach. So at this point, he is the special teams coordinator and the wide receivers coach, which is something you don't find very often in the NFL, which means Bill Belichick trusted him a lot. And then in 2020, the year COVID really like hit the NFL the first year, uh, he was giving the head coaching job in New York. And a lot of people like, he kind of is one of those rah, like Bill Belichick disciple type coaches, like no BS, like we make our guys practice outside in the snow in 20-degree weather, like this is an eighth grade Pop Warner team. But they weren't disciplined. They had a good year, but this year really showed the team that they were last year. And they tried to go out and spend a lot of money, invest a lot, go all in. Kenny Golladay has 0 touchdowns. Like, he was a mess. Kadarius Toney, their first-round draft pick, he was a mess. So, I mean, it is what it is with him. He's still kind of young, so he has a chance to bounce back. I think David Culley goes and he finds a wide receiver coach job. I mean, history just, tells you that's what he's going to do, because that's essentially what he's done the majority of his career. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go back to Kansas City as an OC if they lose Eric Bieniemy, although I wouldn't expect it either. And for Joe Judge, I fully expect him to go back to New England and probably become the special teams coach again, and to go back under Bill Belichick, just like Josh McDaniels has done, just like Matt Patricia has done. All his disciples that go elsewhere and think that they can win, and then they fail and they get fired, and so then they come back and he's like, "Oh, I'll take you, don't worry," just like he does with his players. Jamie Collins is there right now, happens all the times with his players. So, with that being said, I want to finish up talking about a couple of the head coaching candidates that I think could fill those spots. And let's start in Houston. They have already come out and said now, and this is one thing I forgot to mention in my previous video, but Brian Flores is going to get hired in this cycle. And that's probably why I didn't include him, because typically when a coach gets fired, he does not get hired in that same cycle. But this is different because a lot of people feel that he was unceremoniously fired, that it was really a power struggle between him and Brian Flores, or him and the GM down there in Miami, Chris Greer. And so a lot of people feel like he's going to get a job immediately, and he's going to be highly coveted as potentially the top the top coaching candidate. I mean, I've heard him rumored in both of these spots that we're talking about, Brian Flores. I've heard him rumored both in Houston for interviews and in New York. John Mara said in his interview that, he's a guy they like a lot. So be interesting to see. Honestly, though, I really expect the Giants to get an offensive guy in there, so that you can, because if you bring a defensive guy into the Giants, what are you getting? Because they already have a good defense, so it's like, okay, well, what are you gonna do about the worst offense in the NFL? Are you going to fix that with more defense? That doesn't make sense. He's going to need a big time OC if he goes to New York. That's all I'm saying. He's going to need somebody that really knows, a former coach, an offensive mind who got fired, or one of these coaching candidates that didn't get a spot. He's going to need somebody big if he goes to New York. And I mean, Houston, I can see him going to Houston because their offense wasn't that bad. It was their defense that really drug them down this year. So I think Houston is a great fit for him. I don't like him as much in New York. As far as New York, I mean, I don't even know where to start with New York. They could go so many different directions. And honestly, where New York goes will be told after they hire their GM, because you don't know what they're gonna do. They could go any sort of direction, and they have come out and said that they are not going to hire from within. because they have Kevin Abrams, who has been groomed to be the next great Giants general manager after Dave Gettleman was done. And they decided, no, we're gonna do this differently this time. We're gonna hire externally, and we're gonna bring in somebody from the outside. So I think he was probably pretty upset about that, being told, hey, we're gonna groom you to be the next great GM of the New York Giants. And then time comes and it's like, well, actually, we gotta change our mind. So he's probably mad. Oh well. Who cares of the Giants, right? But as far as coach, I mean, man, I like a good fit, I think, for them, and take this for what you will, but I think a good fit for them is Kevin O'Connell. Or if they end up hiring Schoen from Buffalo and then bringing in Daboll. But honestly, I think Daboll is going to go to Miami. Or possibly Greg Roman from Baltimore could go to Miami. But I mean, like Bieniemy could be a good fit for the Giants. Or, Byron Leftwich could go to the Giants. That would be another one. I mean, we just really don't know until they hire a GM. And that's when you will find your answer for the New York Football Giants. The coaches really, or the coordinators have really just started to take their first interviews and just get started in the hiring process. So it'll probably be a couple of weeks before we see any of these guys, getting hired anywhere. But it's a loaded head coach class. It is. Like a couple of years ago, I remember there was only 4 or 5 guys, but there was only 4 or 5 openings. This year, let's see, we've got 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah, we've got 8 openings. And I think on my last video, I had 12 candidates. So it will be very interesting to see where a lot of these guys go. We're going to see new matches made, new offenses started. Can you imagine the Giants and all their weapons and their offense if Eric Bieniemy gets in there and he implants his system to Daniel Jones? Or a guy like Greg Roman, who's orchestrated this crazy run offense for the Baltimore Ravens for these last 2-3 years and made, Lamar Jackson, really Lamar Jackson, and gets that going in New York. Because, Daniel Jones' strength is really when he's moving. He has that sneaky white guy athleticism that everybody talks about. But I mean, that's his strength. You have to play to a quarterback's strength. And if you don't, you're going to fail. That's what happened in New York. They wanted a 1960, offense for the New York Giants this year. And hey, guys, we're in 2022 now. Okay, you can't be running no 1960 offense where it's run the ball 70 times and pass 5. You can't win like that, especially when you go down early like you guys have been doing all year long. So Houston's just interesting. They've got pieces, but they don't have a lot of they need to just go ahead and trade Deshaun Watson, get the haul that they're going to get for Deshaun Watson, and then that makes that a more approachable position. But until then, until Caserio hires a head coach, we're not going to know anything about it. So, it's really up to him at this point. Giants were waiting on GM. Like I said, all these teams are just starting their hiring process, and so it's probably going to be a couple weeks. But I'll be back on if anybody does get hired, or if we start hiring a bunch of them. I'll hop back on. Any other firings happen, I'll hop back on. Any other crazy NFL news, I'll hop back on. I do not mind making these videos. These videos are awesome for me, guys. I really appreciate you guys supporting the channel and supporting me sitting here talking about football BS, as my wife puts it. Football BS all the time. So I really appreciate it. Like the video. Comment below. I want to start finding out some of y'all's favorite teams. So comment below your favorite team. That's the theme for this video. What is your favorite team? And then subscribe to the YouTube channel. Dang it. I need more subscribers. We need more subscribers on the channel. We need more viewers. So subscribe to the YouTube channel. run over to Twitter, follow me at Burgundy Boss on Twitter.